Okay. Technical session number 37, maintaining Windows. This is a good one. We're going to be talking about backups, doing them both locally and remote. We're going to be talking about command line interface a little bit more and tools we can use to help troubleshoot and fix our systems. We're going to be talking about task manager, event viewer, a whole bunch of other things within our system to help maintain it, to prolong its life so that we can get as much use out of these systems as possible and let the system continue to function optimally. We're going to be able to identify common preventative maintenance and updates necessary to keep Windows running smoothly. And we're going to be able to describe how to perform the maintenance updates using the appropriate command line interfaces, administrative tools, and system utilities. Also, we're going to be able to name which command line, administrative tool, or system utility to use for a given update or preventative maintenance check. Lastly, we're going to be able to identify common pitfalls that can occur when performing maintenance checks and updates and how to solve for them. Luckily, we have somebody who works in IT currently right now. We actually have two. We have Marisha and we have Marvin, both working in IT right now. They can help us out with this kind of stuff and give us a little insight as to the day-to-day workings. Behavior skills and mindsets that we want to keep in mind while working through this technical session. Customer focus. Without them, we are not here. We need to make sure the customer takes primacy. We must take care of them, that even if we are unable to solve this solution, they need to at least come away with the feeling that we, one, understood the problem, we did our best to help them, and we tried everything that was feasibly possible to try to resolve their issue. Also, personal responsibility. If we say we're going to do something, we need to follow through. We say, hey, we're going to check back with you in about a week. We don't check back in 2. We check back when we set calendar alerts, whatever you need to do to remind yourself in order to follow through with these tasks. If a mistake happens and you were the one who made that mistake, own that mistake. Also own the good things. If you manage to solve a very difficult problem with little or no help, own it. You will be your best cheerleader as you are working through the industry, and you need to make sure, you don't need to be arrogant about it, but let people know your successes and your failures, as well as documenting stuff like that on your resume. All right, Windows maintenance overview. Preventative maintenance. Essentially, it's more than manipulating hardware. It also encompasses running software utilities on a regular basis to keep the systems fit. These utilities can include scheduled backups, check disks, defragmentation, and updates. Can anybody tell me exactly what does defragmentation do? What is that? Talked about that a few times. What purpose does that serve?
Make the system a little bit faster by eliminating the spaces between files.
Okay. It's a very good start. I like that. Any more we might want to add to that?
It puts together a fragmented file in the disk.
Excellent. So it takes all the fragmented pieces, puts them all together, like Umberto was saying, Renzi was saying, it eliminates the blank spaces in the disks so that things will run faster. It can read and write faster to the system. Can anybody remember what is a good percentage to have available of empty space on a disk in order to effectively defragment? Is that 3%? 30 is a bit much. 30 is a bit much. A little bit less than that. 25, there we go. About a quarter. About a quarter of empty space allows for effective defragmentation. Do we defragment in Linux? No, we do not defragment in Linux. Does it matter the type of hard drive we have, whether or not we defragment?
Yes,
It's
it does,
not
because we don't defragment SSD.
excellent. We do not defragment solid state hard drives. You can actually damage them if you try to do that.
Kelly, I've been doing some reading about that. Let's say your computer allows you and it works. There's no net benefit or net positive or gain from it, because the way that it arranges information, it's not going to help. So that's one reason. And the other reason, like Kelly said, there are instances that you can actually cause damage. So you don't want to do that.
Awesome. That's excellent addition there, Marvin. Appreciate it. Yes, there is no net benefit because of the way data is retrieved and stored to the drives. It's not like a mechanical head is searching for those files. It's completely software based. So it's much, much faster. All right. The reason we do these preventative maintenance things, try to keep the system, the file structures essentially error-free. If we start seeing bad sectors developing on the drives, we don't want to continue to use those sectors. We're going to be able to quarantine them ahead of time and use sectors around it so that we can continue to operate optimally in our system. It'll prolong your computer life. If you just do some basic maintenance once a week, you can schedule these tasks. You don't even have to think about them. They can operate in the background or at night during low usage. You can significantly prolong the life of your computer. And it also helps prevent performance issues like extremely slow performance due to like heavily defragmented disks and things along that nature. Also, if you're overworking drives and stuff like that on a regular basis because it's having to move around a lot to try to find these files, you also increase your chance for drive failure. So backups also a very important thing, because if it's made by man, it's eventually going to break down. We want to make sure that our files are protected. So we have functional backups operating. This is pretty important in a personal life. It is critical in the enterprise world, because if you lose all your system files, that could be catastrophic to the business and could essentially end the business if it's unrecoverable, depending on the type of data you're storing. All right. So some common types of preventative maintenance we're going to go over here in the next few slides. We're going to talk about scheduled backups. We need to know the different types of backups and when you would employ them and how you would recover from these backups. Disk maintenance. You're doing your Windows updates, keeping the system current. Patch management, make sure if any security patches or anything along those lines have come out, they've been sufficiently tested, vetted, and implemented in your systems. Driver and firmware updates to make sure you have the most up-to-date drivers for any of the peripherals you're using with your systems or any other pieces, as well as understanding firmware updates. Those are scary things, but a necessity in a lot of cases. You just have to take the proper precautions when performing a firmware update. Also, antivirus and malware protection, extremely important and often neglected portion of computer maintenance. There are, I think it's thousands, like tens of thousands of viruses that are discovered every single day on computers. So you need to keep your definitions lists up to date so your system will know how to combat these. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we get into security, and we will be doing that this week. All right. All right, scheduled backups. Backups in and of itself is basically an exact copy of your current working system. And you would never want to trust all your data to a single form of backup media. You should have disaster plans in place for regularly scheduling your backups. And one thing that is not notated here, test your backups. You not only schedule it, but you confirm the backups are being made, and you do regular tests of those backups to confirm that effective backups are actually being made. That way, if a disaster ever actually happens, you're able to recover. I might have mentioned this one in this class where company that I knew somebody was working for in Texas had their server rooms at their main office in the basement. The people who built the server rooms didn't put them on a raised floor. And if you remember earlier this last winter, that hard freeze that shut down the power grid in Texas for several days, well, that caused pipes to burst in the building. Water runs downhill, got into the server room, fried 80% of their servers. This is a global company. They thought they were good because they were running backups on a regular basis, right? So they actually go and test their backups. And lo and behold, the backups weren't viable. The transmissions weren't actually taking place. And so when they lost their servers, they literally lost everything. So the only data they had was what was stored on local servers around the world. And they had to use that to rebuild, but they lost an insane amount of data, not to mention tens of millions of dollars in financial documentation and stuff like that, like who owed them money if that wasn't stored in the local servers. So like long-term debt, like, you know, construction projects, things like that, tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars now lost because they don't even know who to bill, how much they owe them, or any of that.
Kelly,
All because their IT department didn't test backups. Yes.
Why that type of stuff never happens to like Navient or Sally Mae or Fed loans? Why do they have such amazing infrastructure and their data is never, like, if somebody wants to mess with somebody, I'm telling you who to mess with. Like I'm slightly rooting for you in that regard. I didn't know if you need to step away and not kill him. Also, one thing that Kelly always tell me that he has something, the way that his backups are, because he spent a lot of time doing it. He has something locally, he has something away, and then he has something that's off of his network. So he's always planning for that impending possibility, which is always a good thing, because the worst thing that can happen is that you lose your information due to not doing something that you knew you should do in the first place. Mm-hmm. Right? Like that's the worst feeling. The worst feeling is, hey, I already had this extra hard drive. It's still in a box. All I needed to do was to plug it up, let the software do its thing, and do a migration that works in the background, and then unplug it, and it's there for forever. So those pictures that you have accumulated, all of the movies, maybe it be home movies or movies that you've owned and ripped down, that's just like the worst feeling. To have to do that again or be in a position where you can't do that. So I advise everybody do it. So
yeah, I mean, sometimes it's so old, like we had stuff that we ripped down from 8mm, and the process of ripping it down destroyed the 8mm because it's so old and fragile. So if we lose this, it's unrecoverable. There is the original media is gone.
Yeah.
So, you know, yeah. So I have my main drive. I have a backup in the house that I back up once like a week. And then I have another drive that I keep in a safety deposit box that I back up once a quarter, because I'm not going to run the risk of losing all of this stuff.
One other thing that I don't think Kelly got to yet is that this company that he's speaking about actually had a backup plan.
Yeah.
But did you tell him yet about it? Did I
Well,
miss that?
I was kind of explaining, like, they had a backup plan. They were backing up multiple times a week. I mean, they had a full disaster recovery plan. They had backups in place that they were backing up offsite, but nobody bothered to ever test those backups to see if they were viable. So these backups were being sent, but weren't being captured.
Right. That's it. That's crazy.
So
And
nobody audited the backups that were being made.
And
so when they went to recover from it,
yeah, go ahead and do that, Kelly. The level, because I'm telling you, I need my sausage and my cereal. Right, Evan?
it is a food emergency, apparently. Hobbits
Go
are
for
hungry.
Go for it. I'm here. So the level of this company, the amount of money that's thrown into a company of this size, and you still don't have these things in place, I frown on that, because I tell you, as much as we think that IT is a bustling business and it's moving and shaking, you have people who still don't have the right people in place handling these things, and this can happen. You're one checkpoint away from this disaster, in a sense. And I wanted to kind of like make sure you guys realize how easy that is. Like, you have, and let me also say this, it's also why we feel so adamant about training you properly, because you will have some people that may be over you that may not get it, and you got to go in and you delicately express some changes that need to be made for the success of that department, because some people have been given positions that, because they've been with the company for a while, and they were the only person that knew what the 3.5 floppy did. And now they just got this job. It happens. Mark, it happens. And I know you probably seen it in some instances. It happens. So they're not as aware. I mean, I was given the management department position for computers because I sold computers well. But I had people that worked on my team that was gamers and really people that was in it. And so I leaned on them. So you may be leaned upon to ensure that the success of what you're doing is happening. I wanted to make sure I kind of imparted that. So there will be some people when you can't even talk to your manager about something, because unless you can show them, they don't understand. So you may have a lot of information that's pertinent to the success. And you would think when Kelly first told me the story, I can't believe that. I can't believe that this happened. But then now I can, because it's still, and the growth is still there for you and for others to get in there and make some moves in that area, in those industries. So this FYI.
Absolutely. And disaster recovery plans are critical. And there was another case with disaster recovery plan where they had this awesome disaster recovery plan, very detailed. They were doing live fire exercises, practicing it, doing the tabletop stuff once a quarter to make sure everybody knew what their jobs were, all that fun stuff. Well, the disaster finally came. They had this awesome disaster recovery plan, and nobody thought to print it out.
Right.
So they had this amazing disaster recovery plan on a system that crashed.
That was a part of the disaster.
So it's little things like that, failing to audit your backups, failing to have an actual hard copy of your disaster recovery plan so you know exactly who needs to do what and when, where are your backups, what are your operational standards for moving off site? Do you have cold sites, hot sites, warm sites? How do you have your stuff set up? Also, getting back to backups. There are 3 types of backups that we need to be aware of. and how to implement them. First one's pretty easy. Full backup. That is everything copied at one time. You might be thinking, why don't you do this every time? Well, it takes a long time to do a full backup. So this is something you may typically do on a Sunday when business is at its lowest. Typically people aren't working, tends to be some of the slowest time. So you would run your full backups on a Sunday. And then the next two types we have are incremental and differential. So incremental only backs up data that has changed since your last full or incremental backup. Yes, Evan.
So this is kind of on but off topic. So when you're backing up your phone, right, would that be considered incremental? Like if we're backing up, for example, like for Apple, how we back it up to iTunes, is that considered incremental?
Well, typically they will do a single full backup, and then they likely will do incrementals after that, and then occasionally they may do a full backup. Because again, full backups take a lot of time, even though it's only 64 gigs on your phone.
Pretty
typically.
much the full backup is when you get like a new device. And when you back up all your previous,
not necessarily, because what they're doing is like the first time it's that full backup and it takes a long time, and then after that they're looking for what has changed on your device, what updates have been made, what files have been downloaded. So they're like, okay, I have this information, I just need to determine what has changed since the last time we did a backup, and that's why those backups go faster, and that's what's called an incremental. So it's literally just checking to see what has changed since the last time you backed up.
All right.
And so incremental, last time you did an incremental. So like if you do an incremental on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then you do a full backup on Sunday. If you were to do the incremental on Monday night will determine everything that has changed since Sunday night when you did that backup. If you did an incremental, then the one on Tuesday would only save the stuff that has changed since Monday night, and so on and so forth. So if your systems crash, say on Thursday night, like everything goes down, you lose everything on Thursday night, you would need your full backup from Sunday, and then your incrementals from Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. In order to get full system recovery, you would need all 4 backups. So that would be incremental and full. Now let's add in differential. A differential backup will do all the changes since your last full backup. So say you would do incrementals on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and you do a differential on Wednesday, and you do a full on Sunday. So let me write this out here. All right, so we got 7 days of the week here. So on Sunday nights, we do a full. So every Sunday night we do a full. We just did the incremental one. So let's say we do a incremental on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, but not if. And Saturday you do an incremental, and then say Wednesday you do a differential. So in this scenario, we do a differential on Wednesday, we do a full on Sunday, the rest of the week we do incremental. So let's have that same scenario, but we lose our servers we lose everything on Friday. How many backups and which ones do we need in order to get a full recovery?
Incremental and full.
Well, which days? I mean, which,
Oh, you say which days?
yeah, which ones do we need in order to get a full recovery? So we lost everything on Friday. So what do we need?
Any days before Friday? Monday,
need
through
all of them?
Thursday?
So remember, full is a complete backup. Incremental is any
So
data
it'll
that's changed.
so it'll just be incremental and differential?
No?
Wednesday and Thursday.
What did you say, Janina?
Wednesday and Thursday.
Sunday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
There we go. There we go. You're right there, Janina. But you've got the full backup. Remember, the differential does everything since the last full. So once we get the differential on Wednesday, Monday, and Tuesday, incrementals become null. We don't necessarily need them because we have this differential that gave us everything since the last full. And then we would need the incremental from the next day on Thursday, and that would essentially get us back up and running. So we have the full, the differential, and the incremental in this scenario to get us back up and running. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. So definitely know these definitions and kind of how they work together. So understand that full, incremental, and differential. You might also keep working copies, certain programs and things like that, which are kind of quick recoveries that you would keep on site. These backups and stuff, you may not necessarily keep them on site. It depends on the type of disaster recovery plan you have in place. You may have some backups on site, but maybe not all of them. All right. Next. Windows Systems Protection. We use to automatically back up system files and stores them at regular intervals. It's essentially creating restore points where it takes snapshots of the system that can be used to rebuild from. And it includes all Windows system files. Restore points are taken at least every 24 hours, though you can set them to be much shorter than that for greater protection. And it's a great tool for if you have application problems, restoring your settings, things like that. Then you have System Restore, and it will reset your system and all settings back to the point where you set a restore point. Remember, this is something that they say is automatically turned on, but you should actually go in and manually turn it on your system because in my experience, Marvin's, it's not automatically turned on for you. It's something you need to initiate. And once you initiate it and set a schedule, then you would have points of reference you can go back to.
Agreed. It's not always turned on.
So, 10-4 Marvin. All right. So, it can affect installed software, hardware, user settings, and operating system configuration settings. Your user data is not altered, like files and stuff like that that you've created. Restore points typically are for system file settings, not the files that you actually put on the system. So if you lose a bunch of files, like if you've deleted some of your documents, restore point is not going to help you in that sense. If you downloaded a infected application and installed it, a restore point may help you eliminate that. All right. Questions so far? All right. Next, disk maintenance. You have essentially two distinct functions when you're talking about disk maintenance. So you're wanting to occasionally check and see if pieces of it are failing, clusters are going bad, things like that, and they're not keeping the data as they should. And then you have the other side of it, which is keeping your data organized so that it can be accessed in a efficient and timely manner. All right, error checking. So we have two basic ones we can use in command line. You have your scan disk and check disk. These are command line utilities to look for bad sectors in your drives. Current systems call it error checking, and then Mac OS X uses disk utility, while Linux itself uses something called FS check or file system checker. Definitely want to know the differences between the three, like who calls, which system calls what. So when they're talking about file system checker and they're talking about Windows, that command line does not work. When they find bad clusters themselves, they'll flag them or quarantine them essentially to avoid those clusters being used anymore, and tries to recover the data from them that is currently residing there, if at all possible. Now, in order to perform this on Windows, gives you the directions here. Go to Windows Explorer, select Properties from the shortcut menu, click the Tools tab, and then click Check Now. In the Check Disk dialog box, check Automatically Fix System Errors and scan for and attempt recovery of bad sectors. Click Start. At this point, it will go ahead and run that system for you. This is in the GUI system, not in command line. All right. Here is a photo of what it looks like. Error checking, check now, automatically repair, and start at that point. Questions so far? Again, we will put up the Nearpod and slides up in the chat when we are done, as well as on Slack. So you will have these for a good reference tool. Defragmentation, we talked about this a little bit earlier, puts all contiguous files together in a central, like cluster together so that you can access them quickly and efficiently. Clusters are also called FAUs or file allocation units. If we remember, we talked about how the system will set up these file systems in FAT32, FAT64, stuff like that, the various ways that they will set them up. We looked at the tables as to how they line them up. And as drives are written and deleted from the drives themselves, clusters are filled and released as they are used. At the end of a cluster, the unused space, as we talked about, if we only need where we have to each cluster 64 bits, we only need an additional 5 from our previous cluster. All the rest of that additional space is used up and cannot be used for anything else. That is called slack in the system. Okay, 1 minute. And then we have a moving in a mechanical drive. You may have to move files together in order to create greater efficiency.
Got the next slide, Kelly.
Appreciate it.
All right, talk about a little disk maintenance, right? So this is also seen inside of the GUI. You just got to go to, you can just, at this point, you can just type in disk defrag in the start menu, but if you needed to try to navigate, just go to your control panel and it'll be there. And as you can see, it gives you information on when it was ran, how often it's run, and ideal time to run it. Anybody want to jump out there and say what would be an ideal time to run this defrag on your personal PC? And why? Jordan, I feel like you want to tell me the answer to that. Why do you, what time would you want to run this defrag and the why behind that?
I'm not sure, but I'll try. Maybe you
Okay.
have multiple disks and you want to just choose one.
Yep, that would be a good reason to run it and defrag it. But hey, I work on my computer all the time. When am I not working on my computer, Jordan?
When you sleep,
Bam. So what time do you think I'm going to run my disk defrag?
night.
Yep, I'm going to run it at night. I'm gonna leave it open, let it run, let it do its thing, and I can schedule it so it'll be done by the time in the morning. It doesn't affect my day or my performance. So I do it at a time where I'm away from the PC. Logically, that would be during those later night periods. So that's when I would ideally run it. And I can schedule that. So it'll be something that's being done in the background. And your mileage may vary. I always say that. You may not have to run it as often. So you just trying to figure out what you're doing and how much you're moving around information. But the whole purpose of this defrag is to ensure the best performance of your hard drive due to use. So good job there, Jordan. All right, we got another slide. Disk cleanup. Disk
I have a
cleanup.
question.
Go for it. I'm sorry, Diaz. I didn't see your hand. Go for it.
With the defragment, does your do you have to leave your computer on for it to work?
Yes.
Yes, it's gonna require it to be turned on to do it. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thanks.
No problem.
It'd be really awesome if we didn't have to, but yes.
All right. Disk maintenance. There are going to be 4 types of files that we will use when we clean up. Those files you probably know, but now you're sealed. It's going to be temporary files, internet files, and program files that we've downloaded, and just regular temporary file. Let's think about that. Do I need to keep, I get a new computer and I add Chrome and Zoom to my computer. In order to add it, I have to download the application from those respective websites. Why would I keep the Google Chrome download in my downloads folder? I have no reason to keep it. It's only set, it's done its job. It loaded the application on the computer or made Zoom available on my computer. I don't need the downloaded files for that anymore. So this cleanup will remove those. And as it's mentioned here, Windows require about 15% hard drive free space in order to perform this cleanup. Why does Windows require 15%? I like to hear the whys behind a lot of these because it'll give you an understanding of what's going on. Let me grab somebody if nobody wants to answer. TK. Big King? Because the answer is pretty the same, but I want to hear you. I need us to understand the why behind it. So why would I need about 15% to a free space on my hard drive to perform this?
I don't know, Marvin.
Well, thank you for your honesty there. Okay. That was very honest of you. Why do I need free space on the hard drive to do anything? Give me, okay, Pozo, go for it.
Yeah, you need when you are handling the defragmentation and also for the page file. When you use virtual memory.
You have in essence, and you're right there with me, Pozo. In essence, you need room, you need elbow room. How can I work if I can't move around? Like if I'm being tasked to remove or delete files, there's a process, and I need to be able to move freely in order to address that. And if I don't have any room to move around, then it's gonna be hard for me to do my job. That's why. And these numbers, we got to give you some certain numbers to work with. Is it really 15%? You know, it could be a little less, a little bit more, but it's all about being able to address the issue by having space within that hard drive to perform these tasks. Because if it's too crowded, I can't even move things around. I can't even think, you know, so I need some space to do that. And we throw out values because we need you to understand that you got to have values, you know, we got to have something to hold you to it. So, okay, what did I see down here? So with fragmentation, Alan, the same thing goes. If I have stuff scattered about on a hard drive and I want to imagine playing Tetris and you got all those, you're trying your best to maneuver things around so they can fall into place so they can get rid of that line. If by any chance, when you're trying to defrag or do a lot of this cleanup, you see where you can put that next one, but you're already at the top. So it's hard to even get to it to drop it down. It's slowing you up. It's messy. So you need space. You need some buffer to be able to address what's coming next and how to make it fall in place in order to have it seamlessly stacked and to get rid of it off of that Tetris screen. So that's essentially what we're doing. All right, some steps about the disk cleanup, how to access it. So we go to the Explorer and we will go to Properties here, hit the General tab, and you would see it on there, disk cleanup. You got the free space, you got the used space. Clearly they got enough space to do exactly what they need to do. And also, if you notice, it says allow files on the drive to have contents indexed in addition to file properties, basically to identify and put them in a place where you can reach them if you need to. So it's more information being kept for that cleanup if necessary. To see temporary files, you can also be deleted, click clean up system files. Do I use this? Yes. Not often because I'm not doing a lot of things on the secondary PC that I have, but I have used it in the past. Do you notice a performance difference? That's going to be different by every user, depending on how often, how hard you use that system. I feel like there can be some performance improvements. So I would say that is a significant reason to use it. And we talked about what you get rid of, temporary files, downloaded files, like you don't need those. They're just taking up space. What would happen if you don't have enough space? It's going to tell you, it's going to say, hey, you're trying to get me to do something that I'm unable to do, or you'll be able to, even if you started that function, it'll just sit there. Kind of like what just happened to me this morning when my Zoom was acting up. You'll know that you're in a position where you're not, and then you won't know why, because it may not just outrightly say it. And then you can go to this page here where you see all that sliver of used space right there, Diaz. It'll be super small, and you'll be like, oh, That may be why I can't perform this. And then you have to go through the process of getting rid of some stuff that you may not need. Now, this cleanup is a value added because it targets certain files for you, but you can always go. You guys are gonna laugh at me. Let's see. Share. Yeah, let's see if I can do it. Downloads. I'm doing all this talking about it. Y'all gonna laugh at this. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it?
Why do you stop sharing?
For a second, sir. Even though I don't think that